I first would like to thank the organizers of this third conference. I attended the earlier two conferences and also our partners as presenters. You'll note that this is called Jihadi terrorism, Jews as targets, and especially a concern for Islam. I opened our Paris office in 1980 as France had the largest Jewish and Muslim communities in Europe. My objective is from the Passover Haggadah. The Lord took us out of Egypt with a clenched fist and an outstretched hand. The fist for hate, the hand to our Muslim friends. On Sukkot Eve, I visited in 1980 an Israeli journalist living on the corner of the Kopernik synagogue. She had a house guest from Israel who asked, "Do we need anything for dinner?" Tamar said, "Go down with Shimon to the food shop opposite the synagogue." She turned, as we walked together, she turned into Kopernik. I continued straight. I felt the bomb where Eliza met her death. The following morning, Prime Minister Raymond Barre announced that bombs set for four innocent Frenchmen killed 4 Jews. Now, he was very wrong because apart from a Portuguese on a bicycle, I think it was also a Chinese waiter, Eliza, of course, there was 1 innocent Frenchman. Now, Kopernik launched 73 shootings and bombings of Jewish and Israeli targets across Western Europe. And in August 1982, it stopped. It stopped because Israel entered southern Lebanon to end a wave of terror. Europeans training in PFLP camps in Lebanon fled home. They needed money. They forgot the Jews. They attacked banks, embassies, and the governments cracked down. As Simon Wiesenthal would have said, what starts with the Jews never ends with them. We would go now to the second wave. The second wave, after the first was actually professional and imported from abroad, the second wave was the transplantation of the year 2000 Intifada to Europe. Now the Arab-Israeli conflict had moved from the political to the religious level. And from the import of those professionals who came in the first round, it was now native-born Islamists in France who played not cowboys and Indians, but Palestinians and Israelis, targeting their Jewish neighbors. Please, could you put me back to the second slide? Yes. Now we come to the third wave, which is domestic lone wolf anti-Semitic attacks. And here we have very many attacks on Jewish targets, and particularly the Toulouse school. And the Toulouse school was very important. After it, my colleague, Rabbi Abraham Cooper, and I went to meet with the imam to show them the evil hatred that the children of their community was watching. So this third wave of murder, it included the kosher supermarket, but it was thoroughly against Jews. We now are in the fourth, and the fourth is indiscriminate jihadist terror as a multinational consortium. It included the Charlie Hebdo magazine attack, the Bataclan theater, 130 dead, and the truck rampage in Nice. And the most horrific was the decapitation of a school teacher. And that school teacher brought to the classroom caricatures of Muhammad as an exercise in free speech. Well, we also hope not to see a fifth wave for privileging once again the Jews as targets. Can I please, next slide? Next slide. Yeah, so we come back to Kopernik in 1980, and it took 30 years Diab had become professor of sociology in Ottawa. An extradition request between France and Canada should normally have taken up to 4 weeks, as we said. This took 2 years. I attended the proceedings. The courtroom was full of people wearing Palestinian scarves, bent on a trial of the state of Israel. After 2 years, Diab was taken to Paris for trial. And after 2 years in Paris, he managed to flee back to Ottawa. The families of victims and survivors are still seeking justice and closure, and we call it justice delayed is justice denied. Next slide, please. Yeah, here the same applies, justice denied to the 1994 bombing of the AMIA Buenos Aires Jewish Center, murdering 85 and wounding over 300. Of the 6 Interpol Red International arrest warrants out for perpetrators, 5 Iranians are still on the wanted list. The next slide, please. Yeah, that one. Could you make it bigger? It's very small. Thank you. Make it bigger. Make it bigger, please. Okay, here, this is the marriage between the extreme left and jihadism, which began in 2001, Durban, the United Nations World Conference Against Terrorism. I was the only Jew elected to the International Steering Committee of the conference, and as such, I attended several prepcoms or preparatory committees. But on arrival, I was expelled physically from the committee with screams of "the world Jew." This was not particularly nice. And then you also see there the continuity, which is the World Conference Against Racism held each year, the World Social Forum in Porto Alegre, Brazil. And here we've been attending most of these, and it is not very heartening at the opening to be surrounded by 70,000 plus international youth screaming "Viva la Intifada Global." Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. So here Wiesenthal Center had prepared a convention against suicide terror. And the chain from incitement to financing, to training, to arming, to glorifying the suicide bomber, and made all of those complicit. And it's interesting to say that most suicide terror victims have been from the Muslim world. You can see a collage of names of those murdered, and I'll just mention Jonathan, Nathan, Gabriel, Miriam, Imad, Ahmad, and thousands of other victims. May they rest in peace. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. This year's Arab book fairs, and we have been monitoring 7 Arab book fairs for the past number of years. We have, you can see, the display to incitement to hate and violence, radicalization. And this is, you can also see the type of books: Mein Kampf, The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, The International Jew, Holocaust Denial, Blood Libels, Conspiracy Theories, Calls to Jihad, and other anti-Semitic hate. Now, we give each year an annual Most Offensive Award. Most recently, it went to Egypt for conspiracy theories, and to Iran as runner-up for its books for 4 until 7-year-old children extolling shahada or suicide building. Not a very pleasant situation. Please, the next slides. Okay, this year's Arab book fairs have been clean, or perhaps cleansed. And this is an example of the Abraham Accords bringing new hope, bringing international cultural relations and academic cooperation for future generations. Can you have the next slide, please? Yeah. In 2003, I met with Alla Gerber and Ilya Altman of the Russian Holocaust Center. In fact, I met him a few years before also. The idea was to hold university essay competitions on the Holocaust, certainly in the countries of the former Soviet Union. That first year, I believe that there were 21 submissions. We can speak to Ilya afterwards, and it mounted each year. The last one that we were able to have due to Corona was, I believe, over 2,500 members. So it's been a big, big hit. Now, the 5 winners would be invited each year to come to Paris to present their papers to UNESCO. My wife, who was the advisor to the Director General of UNESCO, set up that program. Now, the photo you can see shows our group at the Rabin Monument to Peace at UNESCO. In the spirit of the Abraham Accords, we see our Russian program as a model for interested universities across the Muslim world. This could include also Muslim territories, as mentioned by Ilya, of the USSR. For example, the Dagestan Fighters of the Red Army, led by Magomet Tankiev, who were in the liberation of Auschwitz. Can we have the final slide, please? Yeah, so just in case anybody wants to contact me, I was born in London 2 weeks after the war, and I've always respected water. The 30 kilometers of the English Channel that saved the 330,000 British Jews on the list for extermination, but saved from the Holocaust. But we're also saved by the Red Army on the Eastern Front. Without your sacrifice, Hitler may very well have crossed that channel, and I would not be here. Today, water is not a factor. The Atlantic or Pacific is no barrier against hate. These create new partnerships, and us here in this conference and other conferences are important. We thank you for this opportunity, and may we engage together in these exciting new opportunities. Thank you.